YouTube is live. So let me put Instagram up live.
I think we could you scoot forward?
Like this?
Towards the camera.
But then I'm way like in front of you. Oh. Is that what you want?
Scoot your chairs.
Checking connection.
We should all be sitting Indian style on the ground.
Instagram is also live.
See if our
I
old
think.
people eyes can reach. We can read these though.
Okay. Well, nobody's on yet.
That's good. Are they all watching the Oscars?
This is
or
like,
something?
oh, 2 people are on. I don't know who they are. 4.
Oh.
Oh, 12 people are on this one.
Which one's
Okay.
that? The Instagram one?
This is Instagram. I'm gonna
You can
leave
read
this.
the questions off your phone.
Hey guys, we're just getting started here, so bear with us.
We're not in
All right.
Alaska right now, as you can tell.
I don't know if I can get this to work. Ah!
It thinks you're.
No,
okay.
this.
Alright. I might sit on the ground so we can read it.
We can sit a little closer. Okay, so let's see. We're too far, huh? Can you move so I can scoot the chairs up?
I can just stand.
Okay, so I'm Dan, and this is Seth and Drea.
Hi.
We have Marlene here. Let's see who's got. EK Champ. Not embarrassing at all. Well, that's because you're not here. We're gonna try to work out how we can see that your questions on the screen versus like you being able to see us and hear us. So we are hoping this works out, and maybe if we can get another phone, we can see all the questions too on Instagram.
Do you guys want to use mine?
Hey, Adventure Drift. What's going on, guys? Okay, so yeah, if you can pull up, I think if you can pull up the live stream on YouTube, then you can see the questions that people are asking. And if you can do the same for Instagram,
Okay.
tell me if that works. So Instagram, from our experiment the other night, has a hard cutoff at 1 hour. So I don't know if we'll go that long. Maybe it will. Just in case Instagram cuts out, we'll continue on YouTube. If not, restart the Instagram if there's more questions still.
Mine's not gonna. I'm not gonna be able to do it, guys. I've got limited cell data.
No, I'll grab one of the other phones. Oh, there's Marlene.
Okay, I can read it out loud.
Okay. You do the Instagram, and I'll get another phone for you.
Dan's just grabbing another phone for YouTube, so we can actually see the questions as they come up since they're tiny right now. Yeah, computer's even more exotic.
I don't know if this is. I think that's live. Yeah. Okay, so I'll see people joining.
Thanks for bearing with us as we figure out all our devices.
We're trying to YouTube live and Instagram live here. If this one's working.
It'll be good to have a few extra minutes to let people join in too.
Where's your kids?
They have iPad time now.
Ooh, it's happy
I
hour.
can have quiet time here.
Are the parents having iPad time with them?
No, my parents went to downtown. Check it out.
Oh, wow, nice.
Okay, good. I got it right here.
Nice.
Okay. Jocelyn Morrison wants to know, do you get tired of living on the road?
Well, why don't we introduce ourselves before, first of all, sometimes yes. But let's just introduce ourselves really quick, because I'm sure you guys know Molly Mish. You probably don't know me. You might know Seth. My name is Drea. This is my husband Seth. We've been living on the road for 4 years now in an Airstream, a 24-foot Airstream, and we took it to Alaska a couple of years ago. Yeah,
as soon as we set out on the road in 2014, we went straight up to Alaska because we were just that ready to get out of society, and so we just beeline straight to Alaska, and it was like one of the best things we ever did. So we're hoping that we can help answer your guys' questions, and yeah.
And you guys, I hope, have an idea who I am, being that I there's two different mindset about live stream. Initially, we thought, okay, maybe we don't promote it because if nobody comes, then it's not embarrassing. But I decided to promote this, try to make this as good as possible. So we promoted this on our Instagram and as well as our YouTube. And I'm hoping that's why you guys are here. If that's the case, awesome. I'm Dan. This is my wife, Marlene. We've been traveling for about 10 years. About 8 of those been full-time. So, yeah, and let's dive into the questions.
Yeah,
You guys want to see?
the first question was, do you get tired living on the
Yeah,
road full-time?
Jocelyn Morrison wants to know.
We'll field that. Oh, we'll start with that one. Yeah, I mean, it's been 4 years for us now, and it definitely gets a little old. One of the keys is to mix it up with variety. Like when you're living small, you have a lot more options as far as freedom goes in general. But one of the options is you can actually just store your RV in a lot and then rent an Airbnb, which we did in Montreal for a few months, and that like broke up the monotony. Because it does get to be a lot, you know, constantly like moving and looking for resources and campgrounds, and you know, it gets taxing, and sometimes you just want a break from all that and you just want to relax. So either you could do that in an RV park and just chill find a place you really like and kick back for a few weeks in an RV park, or like the example I just mentioned, just store your RV and get into an Airbnb for a couple weeks or however long, just to break up the monotony. I think it's all about variety. That's why we got into this lifestyle. We wanted to have options, ways to live our life without being like stuck in, you know, one place in one situation. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is not so much that we live in our RVs or wherever, it's that we have location independence.
Mm-hmm.
That we don't have to get tired of living in one particular housing unit of whatever kind. We can be in an RV, we can be in an Airbnb, we can be at a friend's place, we could be tent camping. You guys go on hikes way more than we do, and backpacking trips,
Yeah.
you know, stuff like that. And that's
Right.
a lot more
Hotels,
variety.
like hotels become novelty.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Yeah, hotels, you know, like our kids, when they stay in a hotel, they're like swimming pool, like,
Yeah.
you know, free breakfast and all these things that they don't usually get. Oh, James just gave us a $5 tip. Thank you so much. Well, I guess we'll go back to the indie project, which I have a question, and also Harvey. Well, Harvey is also one of our patrons on Patreon. So, and I haven't thanked the last 3 patrons yet, but since Harvey, you're here, I want to thank you for that. Let's see. Let's just go down real quick. What is it about the Airstream that you love so much? This is from Indie Projects. I think for us, it was initially we weren't thinking of Airstreams. We were just thinking about the layout, the size, and also obviously the cost of whatever RV that we were going to get. And it happened to be this little teardrop thing that we came across called the Tab, and I think they're pretty popular now. And when we went to go see the Tab, the dealership also happens to be an Airstream dealership. So that's when we saw them for the first time, when we thought, well, one day we'll get one of these.
Mm-hmm.
So that became our next RV, which came a year later. None of this Airstream community, this whole, you know, all the people that have been fans of Airstream from, like we basically just came across them, like we knew of them, but we didn't know anything about it until we bought ours. But ever since then, you know, we've been part of this really amazing community of Airstream travelers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's how we met you guys.
Yeah. Initially, for us getting into an Airstream, it was all about, we just really loved the aesthetics of an Airstream. You know, everybody has their own personal preferences. Obviously, go and get into as many different like RVs as you can try, but one of them, you know, you're just gonna have a natural draw to, and that's what the Airstream was for us. the aesthetics and the design and the ease of towing and those panoramic windows. A lot of natural light was key for us. I'm a photographer, so I'm a very visual person. I want to see the views. I want to be able to like put the Airstream and have it kind of feel like I'm in the environment rather than like boxed off from it. The other big one was the reason we got an Airstream was the American icon of it. Like I have a lot of pride for this country, and I feel like Airstream is well, it was the first RV literally, and the fact that it has a long tradition with Wally Bynum, taking caravans across the country, getting people outdoors, getting people to experience other cultures. You know, like he took people to Africa in the Airstream caravans. It's just like that whole spirit and that American-made classic icon of it really spoke to me as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think durability and quality.
Durability
That's
is a big
probably
one.
one of the biggest things that people go after when they, because if you look at cheaply made RVs, they're not made to be full-time. I mean, even Airstreams, they don't say that you should full-time in them.
In the Airstream manual, it says not intended for full-time
Right,
use.
do not live here too
It
much.
works, obviously, but
Yeah, we do put more wear and tear on ours than normal people do. Okay, so let's jump to a couple more of these real quick. There's a quick one. Barry Waltz said, "Are we in Arizona?" Yes, we are. We're
Cave
in
Creek,
northern
Arizona.
Phoenix area.
We have our first Alaska question.
Okay.
What do you think about taking the Airstream on top of the World Highway and the Dalton Highway?
Oh, we can answer that one. Oh yeah, we all can.
Yeah.
We all did,
I would not do it.
Okay.
I would not take it on the Dalton or the top of the top of the world. Yes,
That's what I was gonna say.
but not the Dalton
Not the
Highway.
Dalton. Once you get all the way up to Fairbanks, it's like that's enough driving. You know.
Right. So we took ours from Chicken to
We did. Toke.
No, what's the
Sourdough shop?
where's the sourdough
Oh,
shop?
Dawson City.
Dawson City.
Yeah.
From
You were
Chicken,
going the
which
other
is
way,
on because we went across the top of the highway leaving Alaska.
Yeah.
So we did it later in the season. You guys did it at the beginning of the summer
Beginning,
season.
yeah.
Were they still paving the road when you drove over it?
About I want to say about 10 to 15 miles of the road on the Alaska side was brand new.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, lucky
Perfect.
you.
So it's even been improved since we did it, and we would say, it's definitely worth it. Dawson City is quite an experience.
Yeah,
And since
Dawson City is amazing.
You're already up there, and you're going to be going to Alaska. Then the top of the world highway is a
Top of the
no-brainer.
highway is no problem.
Yeah.
Do it in Airstream. There are much worse roads that you will probably drive through than top of the world highway.
But I want to add something too. So Dawson City, which is on the way, in the Yukon territory, there's no bridge over the Yukon River, so you take a ferry, and it's an old, reliable ferry. It's reliable most of the time. It fits not that many cars. It's pretty low.
It's free.
It's free, but you will be on a ferry. And the other thing that happened to us, which I won't think will be an issue this year, was that they were paving the top of the world highway, and they had some real sharp,
Lean in a little bit.
just big, chunky, sharp gravel. So it wasn't even like being on a pea gravel road. It was like really, really bumpy and sketchy for probably about 10 miles.
Yeah, it was just like grade B gravel because they were getting ready to like pave it.
Yeah,
Sharp
that was
edges.
construction.
It's gonna ding up your trailer. So
Yeah.
I would say, if you're concerned about the road condition, biggest things you'll want to do is make sure you get good mud flaps, and you guys did some like foam protection for the front of the Airstream because that's gonna get dinged up, and it's still you got dings anyways. I think at some point you just have to be willing to accept that it will cause, if not major, at least some minor cosmetic damage.
And the other thing to note is that they do road construction up north when they can. Their summer is short, and you will hit road construction. Rocks will fly. There's something called Yukon windshield, where a big old rock hits your windshield, and that's a thing.
Yeah.
And generally when that happens, it's actually when a car is going the opposite way and you're passing them.
Big rig.
A big rig. They'll kick up a rock, So the best way to avoid it is to, when you see a big rig coming, slow way down. Let them pass you, and then speed up. Because if you're going past them at 50 miles an hour, they can kick up a rock, and that rock will slow to 30 in the air, and you'll smack it at 20 miles an hour. So that's still gonna shatter your window.
Arc of rock.
Yeah.
And we also on our Airstream we got little black tar from freshly laid asphalt. And that
Yeah.
I don't even know how
Yeah.
to take that off, so I just pretend it's not there.
Right.
And the frame of your trailer will get dinged up quite a bit too, if you drive gravel roads.
Yeah. So by the time you're done, you're back doing normal roads. You'll probably want to do a fairly good job of like sanding off the rust and just kind of lay a layer of primer and some fresh paint over it.
And that makes a world of difference. It really worked with ours.
Let me just say though, before we went up there, we heard a lot of hype about like how challenging the roads were going to be getting to Alaska, and it became like this ominous kind of like thing in our minds where it just got built up so much in our head, and by the time we got up there we realized like it's really not as bad as
it's good to be
everyone
prepared.
makes it sound.
Yeah, be prepared.
But it's
Yeah.
not going to be as bad as you probably are
I think it
imagining.
will be,
Like,
yeah.
road construction and frost heaves are a biggie. They're supposed to be marked, but sometimes they're not, and all of a sudden the next thing you know you're 2 feet in the air, and
It's like
you know your
topaz.
trailer,
Yeah.
your pantry has unlatched, and there's lentils everywhere. And I'm speaking from experience. So, and the pure distance of travel is pretty impressive.
Substantial.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's
Right.
not like the worst roads we encountered were in New Mexico. They were far worse than anything we encountered on the Alcan or in the Yukon Territory. So I thought it was pretty doable.
Okay, so let's go to next couple questions. Let's answer James W. He's the one that gave us a $5 tip. So
Okay.
we have to address that
Okay.
first. Thank you, James. He says, thanks for the great videos. I'm assuming he's talking about my videos
Yeah.
and your videos. And your videos.
This
though.
is your show.
If you guys don't watch Seth's videos, search for Seth K. Hughes on YouTube. He just dropped a A+ video on the Fuji XH1.
Yeah.
The brand new camera. So, anyways, James wants to know, do the kids get burnt out from the traveling? We can go grab one of them.
I don't know if they want to be on the spot.
Um,
They'll say like, "Oh, I want to hang out with this friend, or I want to see my grandparents," and we try to, have expectations. Like we'll see them this time,
Yeah.
for Halloween, and they know when to expect.
yeah, and I think that's what it is. They don't get burnt out because, in one sense, meaning that there's so much more to see that they haven't seen, and when given the choice so far, they still would rather go see more things than not. But yeah, they do have things that they miss, and when they bring those things up, we try to make a point of satisfying those urges that they have. That they want to go, they want to have, trick or treat Halloween. With friends. Okay, every October 31st, we make sure we're back near friends or near family, and then we can go do that. And they want to have birthday parties where they can, be with other friends. Then we make sure we either meet up with friends on the road and have birthday parties for them, or be back home. And the way that their birthdays are kind of set up, we have a birthday pretty much every 3 months. So Ava generally has birthdays with family because it's January and we're usually back here on the West Coast. So yeah, I mean they're just normal kids, just like normal kids. They get tired of certain things, but they're also very excited to see new things. What about Emma?
We can't speak to that. we don't have kids. We have a 4-legged child. She loves life on the
She
road.
loves it.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to go trick or treat.
Oh, no.
No, that's not a thing.
She wants to chase bunnies.
Okay, so Harvey, and I think I'll combine Harvey's question with Jordan's question. Harvey wants to know, how do we stay connected in remote locations, and then Jordan wants to know, what's the biggest source of anxiety traveling, living this lifestyle, finding Wi-Fi, safety, blah blah blah. So we can address the Wi-Fi connection anxiety thing.
They're together.
Right. You guys want to go first with that?
Sure. So we have to be online. I work 9 to 5 remotely. I need conference calls. I'm on Slack. I'm on Google Docs, which is still pretty bandwidth light compared to like video. He does video uploads, but we have to be present. So something like driving to Alaska was a challenge in terms of staying online. There are huge stretches of land with nothing. So I think for us, the biggest source of anxiety is staying connected. So we have to plan our weeks around staying connected, around having good enough reception, you know, to do what we need to do. Yeah.
And that's mostly in the places in British Columbia where it's just such like extreme wilderness. Once you get to Alaska, you're pretty well covered, but there's large swaths of Canada that have nothing. And yeah.
You took a few days off.
Yeah, we
We have
too.
vacation days were spent driving.
Yeah.
So. Exactly.
Yeah. So as far as planning goes, we don't necessarily plan every stop and every day of travel, but in situation where we know either from somebody else that's been there or just from our own research online that there's going to be X number of miles ahead of us that has no connection, we'll try to do that over the weekend. We'll know, okay, we got to do 300 miles a day for 2 days to get there. As far as Wi-Fi connection anxiety, we pay way more today to get internet connection because of that than we have ever in our previous lives.
Likewise, yeah.
So that's just to kind of appease that anxiety, to make sure that, like, you know, we feel like we're doing our best to be able to cover. So we have T-Mobile, we have Verizon, we have AT&T, and having those three services, I think, you know, we're really well covered, both in the network footprint as well as the amount of bandwidth that's required to work online these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say there are some small towns like Dawson City, like Haines, and this might have changed since we were last there, but they have they're very remote, and the telecom providers give them a very sort of limited bandwidth basket for the entire community for the month. So when you visit there, you kind of have to go in through the community's data. So sometimes they have special data plans that you pay for 24 hours and stuff like that. It gets sometimes it gets interesting.
The library in Dawson City, it was a strict like 1 hour, and then you're cut off.
You know, when we were in Dawson City, all that had gotten much better.
Oh, had it?
Because when we got there a year after you guys, Dawson City had 4G LTE, and
awesome.
we were able to roam on it with our T-Mobile account.
Nice.
So I don't know if I know that's changing, like pretty much like it seems like every 6 months there's some new plan coming out, whether or not is to accommodate for the increase in demand and the lack of, you know, network bandwidth and stuff like that. But I know AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, they all still have plans, U.S. plans that let you use a certain amount of data in Canada. It's not, I don't think it's technically unlimited anymore, but you know, it's if you use sparingly, you can get by.
Another thing is when you go to certain towns like we camped in Whittier and Seward, when cruise ships show up, all of a sudden your phone will stop working. You're like, what's wrong with my phone? And then distance, you'll see a cruise ship with like 1,000 people.
Yeah.
And then you need to work around.
Yeah, because normally it's a town of a few thousand people. So the networks build the towers with the right amount of radios to accommodate them. And they're not going to have, you know, extra capacity just to accommodate those 3 months when the other 9 months is just locals. So you have to be prepared that when 1,000 people on a boat shows up and they all turn on their phones at the same time, the tower is going to practically explode.
Find a different place to work.
So connectivity, if you have to be connected, definitely plan accordingly. Safety issues with kids at certain campsites, locations.
I think the biggest safety issue is with wild animals and bears. Just expect there to be a bear around every corner because it's more than likely true. Yeah.
It feels like that. We actually didn't see bears as in Alaska, but we saw them all the time in Canada.
Yeah. But just you have to have a good amount of awareness. Moose are also very dangerous in Alaska. So.
And there's petty theft. There's like bike theft and stuff you'd find in the lower 48 as well, but with a less populated area, you know, just use common sense. But we didn't experience anything special. I mean, grizzly bears, right? Or brown bears, as they're called in Alaska. Those bad boys are much scarier than black bears. But other than that, nothing exotic.
Yeah, we felt safe most of the time.
We have a lot of shout outs on Instagram. Your brother is on.
Where's the Alaska questions?
Yep. Greg Sock Monkey, Greg and Karen Sock Monkey are on. Hey guys. Sharon Corley, of course. She's our biggest fan.
Oh, nice.
She's awesome. And I'm assuming this is Angela. Angela says hi, Luke, or hey, Luca. Want to say hi to Angela?
Hi. We're all good.
Give her the peace
They're right
sign.
there.
She's in her bus. Give her a peace sign.
Okay, so let's see. Where are we located? We're in northern Phoenix area, Cave Creek, Arizona. Let's see.
If you want to go back to Alaska, are there any activities or places you'd want to do again? If we're gonna go this summer.
Yeah, I always think about going back to Alaska, and it's really hard to not do it.
It is. It's really hard. Yeah.
It's really hard because I want to do it every summer, and the reason why I think I shouldn't do it is because there's so many other places to go see. And it is a full commitment to go. I know that people that go for like 2 weeks, which seems insane to me, but I also understand that some people only have that much time. If they want to drive up there, you can probably get up there. Once you cross the border, you can probably cross the border.
It's light.
Okay, we're
Almost
back.
24 hours a day up there as you're driving up there. So your driving days, you can just keep going.
Yeah,
You
so
don't have to stop at night.
I guess that's something else we can talk about, which is the latitude on Earth that you are when you're driving to Alaska, and the fact that it's summertime, and just how much more daylight you're gonna have. During summer solstice, you're gonna have basically 24 hours of sunlight. The sun would never go down, so it's really tricky. It kind of messes with your mind a little bit, because we've driven until 1 a.m. on our way up there and feeling like, wow, that wasn't that bad of a drive. We didn't drive that long because the sun is still out, but in reality, you know, we've been driving for like 11 hours.
And to answer the question, Kenai Fjords outside of Seward, if you take a boat into the national park there, you can see whales and porpoises and puffins and calving glaciers. It's just stunning. We go back. We've been back there twice already and would definitely go back. Denali National Park, Seth and I bike packed, so we put on big old backpacks and wild camped off the side of the road for a few days, and I would do that again with a bike trailer. Just Denali is incredible.
Visiting the sled dogs there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys got it. So fun.
And the whole Kenai Peninsula.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, the whole Kenai Peninsula. It's not Alaskan interior, so it's not like these History Channel or Discovery Channel shows where you're seeing like these guys that live in the deep woods of Alaska. It's not like that. It's along the coast, and it's a peninsula, so there's water all around it. But all the cool little towns, you drive down the Homer, and you drive past these little villages that are still inhabited by a lot of the descendants from Russians that came across the Barren Bridge, or Barren Strait, right? I don't think it goes that far back. But yeah, so there's a lot of Russians. Are they Russian Orthodox? Like,
I don't know.
There's a lot in Homer and that Homer region. So Homer is a really cool area too.
I really like Hope.
Really liked Hope.
Yeah.
Yep. Hope is a little town.
Juneau is also worthwhile. The Alaskan Marine Highway is like a whole nother southeast Alaska, southwest Alaska.
Yeah, so for those of you that are driving to Alaska, you have to consider, you know, what you want to see and what time you have. If you want to see cities that are only accessible by ferries, then you have to either consider taking the ferry up and then driving back, or vice versa. Because otherwise, you won't be able to go to Juneau.
Right.
Juneau is only accessible by boat.
Yes. But it's worth it. But one thing to note with the Alaskan Marine Highway is they charge you by linear feet. So if you have a very long rig, it gets expensive quickly. So it's better for like people in vans or without trailers, without long rigs. But yeah, if we were to go back, we would want to do more of the Alaskan Marine Highway. The Haines, Skagway, Juneau, Ketchikan, Sitka. Like, I think we would try and go all the way up or down on the coast like that.
And then I know that when we drove up, we were fascinated with driving up the Dawson Highway, and it was just too much time offline, couldn't swing it with work. But we did drive up part of the Dempster Highway outside of Dawson City, and there's something called Tombstone National Park up there, which is stunning. And if you keep going, you end up in the very far northern cities, the Arctic Circle cities. So just know that the Dempster is also an option. I don't think it's quite as long as the Dawson.
I think it's very long.
Okay, it might be close to as long as the Dawson.
It's 500 plus miles, I think.
Okay.
The Dempster, I would not take an Airstream.
Yeah.
I would most definitely not take an Airstream there, especially if you go late in the season. When we were in Dawson City, two of our friends who we were with drove up the Dempster. Yeah, it's bodes well. Not like Caleb and Ariana's not on.
Yeah.
They are?
Oh, said cool. Hello, and where is favorite place to camp?
Oh yeah, cool. Hey Caleb, Ariana. So they went together. They drove up the Dempster, and I mean their cars were covered in mud, and it was that kind of mud where it's like slippery, sledding. They saw cars like slipped off the road, rolled over to the side. You get up to the north. The furthest north you can go is Inuvik, which is an old, Inuit village, and they still eat like whale blubber and like seal. I wouldn't take anything bigger than my truck probably.
Yeah, Bodeswell says Dempster is way better than Dawson.
That's right. They did both.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, and the Babcocks agree.
We can go to some of the questions that people left on our Instagram post.
Somebody's asking your guys' account name on Instagram. How many accounts do you have?
Yeah, we have a couple. We put most of our RV lifestyle on RV Legend and Mrs. RV Legend. And then my photography account is Seth K. Hughes, where it's more of like my business posts and portfolio type content.
And if you're watching this video after the live stream, I'll put their links down in the description.
Sharon asked, Seth, did you drink the toe?
Yes, I did. Dan is the only other person I know who's a member of the Sour Toe Club. I have my signed, like, official plaque on the wall right now. So
Jason and Angela also chickened out.
Yeah, I would have too.
But just for context, the sour toe is a Dawson City tradition where people, there's this one bar and there's human toes in there preserved in salt, and every night they'll put the toe in a shot of whiskey, and the idea is, it's a tourist attraction, but it's also really gross. You like take the shot of whiskey and the toe has to touch your lips. And I'm telling you, the toe has like a jagged root. It's like got a nail. It's
I have a picture
brown.
Of it.
It's so gross. But then you get a certificate that you did the sour toe.
So if you're gonna show up, this is really gross. Ava, if you're watching, close your eyes. You have to kiss it.
Yeah. Oh man.
You have to touch your lips.
Let's see. There's Dave Burns, who is on an airplane right now.
Yeah, hey.
Yeah, he wanted to join. He wants to know he can watch this later.
Oh, okay.
But he did have a question, and his question is, okay, let's see. At the end of the day, Kelly and I must pick our poison. Either take our current setup, 27-foot trailer and truck, and be hampered by its size and lack of accessibility, and related inner inner inside passage ferry costs, blah blah blah. Yeah. Or find a different setup and trade spaces for comfort and ability to be nimble. What would you guys do if you guys were to go back? Would you take the same setup back?
Nimble. We'd go nimble.
Yeah, but that's only because we did it with a trailer, and now we would want a different experience.
You had a comfortable setup last time.
But now that we've done that, we would like to access more of these like remote places and just be able to get a little bit further off the beaten path, and then take the Alaskan Marine the inside passage. So I think, Dave, that's a decision you have to make for yourself.
Yeah.
Don't put it on us, Dave.
I mean, Dave, if you're looking for a reason to buy a truck camper, this is a pretty good one. It's a good reason. But I will say, though, I agree with Seth. We've done it with our Airstreams. When we go back, I mean, we downsized to the setup that we have now because of our trip in Alaska, knowing that how much we were limited in the place that we could have gone but didn't go. So we wanted to have a truck-only setup, which we do now, and then we added the casita. I would take the truck camper back in a heartbeat by itself, and I would think hard about whether or not to bring a casita, just because I know that I can deal with 3 months in anything. Yeah. So, yeah, I would say
the casita. I would just go on the truck camper.
Look, but the caveat also, Dave, is like, don't think that you're going to miss out on. I mean, you're still going to have amazing time if you're towing a 27-foot trailer. There's plenty to do, so don't worry about that either. Because, I mean, you can just leave the trailer at the campground and then drive out and do all this amazing stuff. So, I mean, you're not that limited, but
I think
for the first time,
being able to take off with the truck and overnight in the truck alone would be key.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can kind of have the best of both worlds. If you didn't want to go 60 miles down a dirt road to McCarthy with an Airstream, you could just go with a truck and go for 3 days and still be relatively comfortable, and then leave the Airstream back so you don't have to risk additional damage, through a rough dirt road.
Unless you take your tent, or you want a tent camp, which we did that too. We still do to this day. We'll leave our Airstream parked in the campground and then go wild backpacking or just tent camping, and that's also an option.
And might I add that if, like, when we get sick of living in the Airstream, sometimes we don't, and it so happens that we do a multi-day backpacking trip, we come back to the Airstream and we're like, this is huge! This is so awesome!
Puts things into perspective.
And then you get a shower at the trailhead almost, and it's great. Everyone else has to drive way out to it.
Oh, that's true.
Okay, so there you go, Dave. Obviously, if you have any questions, you can just reach out to any of us. Let's see, I've got a couple more here on Instagram. The gas situation going up the Alcan. Did you guys come across any gas issues? You guys were driving your diesel truck, right? Mm-hmm. We were also driving our diesel truck, which had great gas mileage, long range. However, I would say that if you're driving a gas vehicle with a relatively small tank, you do want to consider, just look ahead and see what is the longest gas gap you're going to have. Yeah. How long you can last on the tank. And because what'll happen at the end of the season, if you decide to stay later, meaning past mid-September, getting into like early October, it's going to start to get cold. And along the Alcan, there's all these roadhouses with restaurants and maybe a couple rooms for rent and gas that you can get. And there's a lot of them in the early part of the season, but towards the end, you'll come across ones that have closed. So if you're expecting to get gas there, you may get to a point where you realize, wow, this place has closed, and there's not another one until, way out of gas, like 100 miles before I get there. So definitely plan for that. You want to carry gas cans. And you want to figure out, exactly how much you can travel. If you haven't heard of the Milepost, it's a pretty useful. It's like the resource for charting out gas stations and all the resources along the drive up. Yeah, and it's a book that you can buy pretty much from anywhere that sell books. Yeah. And I believe, correct create new editions every year,
Mm-hmm.
and they're pretty
It's
good
really
about it.
thorough.
Almost too thorough.
Mm-hmm. It's a Bible. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's things in there says at mile 176, there is a microwave dish on top of this tower that is for telecommunication purposes. So it was like, hey, that's nice.
Yeah.
But we had what, 1 5-gallon can of jerry can or something.
Yeah.
We had one 5-gallon can. That's it. We didn't like stock up on. You know.
No, but you also have a 35-gallon diesel.
Yeah.
You got
It's a 20-gallon actually.
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we never needed our reserve tank, our reserve jerry can. So you just, again, plan it out well.
We ran into a problem where one of the diesel pumps was broken, and that was
Yeah.
our stop. And
Yeah.
so we had to coast behind a VW bus for like 50 miles.
Oh yeah, and you don't want to run a diesel engine dry. So we were
Yeah.
close.
We're close, but we made it.
We made it.
We almost ran. We had to use our jerry can in Kansas with a 25-knot crosswind towing one time, and then in Texas, West Texas. So those are the 2 places we've used it.
Somebody asked, the milepost is not an app, I don't think. It's a book they actually buy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
they
old-fashioned
should put
book.
together an app, but then it would cannibalize the book sales, maybe.
Maybe.
So yeah, I don't know. These people, you know, if they ever watch this, consider doing an app.
Just put an app out. No big
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
Take some of the, some of your loot from the book. Pay a guy to do an app. Okay, so my sister wants to know, not just about the drive, but fun places to go, because she is going to be fun employed.
Unemployed.
Fun
Yay.
employed.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Plan works.
She got accepted into graduate school, so I think she's going to quit her job and have just some time
Oh, okay.
off. So,
Yay.
what's your favorite places?
Well, Kenai
I mean,
Fjords National Park,
Yeah.
Denali,
I liked
Talkeetna. is
Talkeetna.
Talkeetna.
You can get on a plane there that lands on Denali, on a glacier there.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of get a really cool tour of the mountain and the park by plane there. You got to wait for the weather to be right. But
Yeah, they'll
that's really
land
cool.
you right on the glacier. Like
Yeah.
you can't get closer to Mount Denali or Denali Peak
Yeah.
than doing that.
Yeah.
Unless
right.
you're climbing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which-
taking a flight would be a really fun thing to do because then you
Yeah.
can really appreciate the scale of Alaska that way.
Yeah, so if you were to do one expensive paid excursion,
Mm-hmm.
what would it be?
Kenai Fjords, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I would want to do one that we haven't done yet, which is Katmai, flying a
Oh, yeah,
bush
go see the
plane
bears
to
eat
Katmai,
salmon.
and the
Yeah.
bears. I guess they're sort of big old brown bears that aren't that interested in humans. They have enough to eat there, so they dig up clams, and the plane will land right on the beach with its big old tires, and
Mhm.
you can just hang out with the bears.
Yeah.
Well, all the photos that you've seen of bears like just catching a salmon in midair as it's trying to, get over this waterfall. That's where that is. That's Katmai.
And McNeil. But if you go to Homer, but you have to book that kind of thing well in advance. People are on top of that. So many of these flights leave from Homer, and you can see bears at Lake Clark. You can see them at Katmai. McNeil, I think you have to reserve. You get a permit like the year before.
A really fun excursion we did was we took a kayak trip into Kenai Fjords National Park, and we
Oh, that
actually
sounds
overnighted on a boat. So it took us out for like 2 nights, 3 days. We had kayaks. We went up to the toes of these glaciers and kayaked around, and that was spectacular. That was a really great excursion. So if you haven't done something
Yeah.
like that, I'd recommend
You can
that.
do so. There's a bunch of tour companies that do tours from Seward, because that's where the visitor center is for Kenai Fjords National Park.
Yeah.
We didn't go from there because they were actually kind of more expensive than we heard that there were similar tours that you can take out of Valdez, which is what we ended up doing.
Oh, cool.
So you go around. It's not that far from each other, but you have to drive all the way up and around to go to Valdez on the other side. And yeah, you can go see the Columbia Glacier. You can see it calving right in the water, and then the big waves that it makes.
We saw an iceberg in the water, and of course, And remember there was like those otters?
Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting to see a iceberg like go like this, and then it totally flipped over,
Yeah.
and all the otters had to like jump off, and then it was like
Right.
this blue color.
Yeah, because there's big chunks that will just break off on the bottom, and the second that it's heavier on the top than the bottom, then it just flips.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it happened when we were really close to it, watching these otters on it.
What was your favorite spot?
My favorite spot, I have to say, the two towns that we like. Okay, one. I have to choose one. Maybe I would say McCarthy. McCarthy is probably the most unique place that we went when we were there.
Yeah. It was a place where it was easier for us as a family to do activities.
Yeah.
With 3 little ones. We went on the old mine tour that we walked through with the kids, and it was super. I don't know. It felt like it was gonna fall down, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And then the kids got to walk with crampons on the glacier, and you get a hike. So.
Yeah. McCarthy is also where the town of McCarthy, I think, is featured in one of these Alaskan shows. So, love it or hate it, it's like, I think what your expectation of what the town might be like, if you watch the show, may be different when you actually get there. But still, it's an amazing place. It's not really actually that hard to get to it. It's just the road can be really bad depending on the frequency of the grading that they do on the road. It's 60 miles, mostly dirt. There's about a 20-mile stretch that's paved, but it's kind of like it's not perfectly paved. When we drove there, it was much better than when we drove back because it rained the whole week that we were there, more or less. But we still liked it. Still one of our favorite places.
We lost a break there. There was no trash service, so we had to burn some of our trash and take it out with us. Wow. And our cabinets, I don't know about your cabinets, our cabinets opened. So what you have to do inside, or we did, is we took like a string or rope through all the cabinets and just had everything tied down.
Yeah, it's gonna be bumpy. And driving just the truck without the trailer, if you guys ever drive washboard roads, you'll know that if you air down and then if you go like right when you get to about the 30-35 mile an hour speed, like you start to float over these washboards. Doesn't quite do the same thing when you're towing a big trailer. It feels better in the truck as you're driving when you go at that speed, but it could be dangerous because the trailer could sway a little bit more because it's not firmly planted onto the ground. And also, once we found out that when we opened the door, everything was everywhere.
Be sure your water pumps off too, because your faucet can like rattle on. We've had like our whole faucet overflow and like cover the floor. Oh. Thankfully, like I caught it before it emptied our entire tank, on the floor. But that's one mistake you don't make twice.
And I've heard too that because you're kicking up so much dirt, if you have your vents open with like a vent cover, the dirt can get sucked in through those vents. You have water on the ground, then it's making mud on the ground. So that's a really good point. Turn your water pump off.
Somebody asked, what is your average cost per month? Gas, food. I'm thinking about traveling across Canada from NL to Victoria this summer.
Canada's a little different. But, Newfoundland is, there's gravel pit parking, aka boondocking, everywhere, right? So that would be cheaper than.
There's a lot. In Canada, I think they have what's called like the Queensland.
Oh, the Crown Lands.
Crown Land, yeah. So I don't know if it's exactly the same. So I think people that are from Canada that boondock a lot will probably be better at answering this kind of stuff than us.
The food in Alaska was more expensive.
Yeah.
Like buying fruit.
Very
was
expensive.
Very expensive.
Yeah. Right. That's true. There's a Costco in Anchorage. Everything's expensive except for Costco. Costco is like the same price as mainland U.S. except for a couple of things like alcohol is very expensive. So stock up with the things that you want to have that they may not have there. But Anchorage has everything. You're probably paying, I don't know, I think we pay probably like a 10 to 20% premium on things in general.
I remember
Certain things are really expensive.
gas was more expensive when we went, but I remember the United States East Coast being more expensive than anywhere else we've driven.
Just the Northeast, or
Yeah.
just all the East Coast?
The Northeast.
The Northeast. Yeah.
So I don't remember what our monthly costs were, but I think they were skewed by like, because diesel back then was like $3.30 a gallon or something when we went.
Yeah, it depends like on so many factors. It's going to be different for everyone what your monthly costs are, but we kind of make it a rule to only wild camp. Like we haven't paid for a campsite in months. Like we got one campsite over the summer, and then before that, I don't know. It's been almost a year since we've paid for camping. So that we like really lower our expenses that way. But we also love wild camping. So it's up to everyone's taste. You can kind of cut corners here, but then spend more money here. But don't underestimate the amount of money it costs to drive long distances.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah, and the eating out. Yeah. There's invariably going to be a lot of eating out. It adds up. Yeah.
Somebody asked, did either of you get flat tires? And if you had spare tires, how many did you carry with you?
We didn't. And actually, I attribute that to this guy. He really did us a solid and recommended that we get truck tires put on our Airstream. So we upgraded to 15-inch rims and got Michelin LT truck tires. And I'm so glad we did because they were bomber. Like I wouldn't cut any corners on buying tires. Make sure you get, first of all, if you have marathons, Goodyear marathons, think hard about taking those up to Alaska because they already are.
Think hard about what you're doing with your life.
Yeah, they're already notorious for like blowing sidewalls, and that's without the roads going up there. So
yeah, that's kind of a controversial topic, but I think my take, and I think it's yours too, is that if you're full-time, if you're putting a lot of miles on your trailer, then you're better off with heavy-duty, good-quality truck tires. Trailer tires, on the other hand, they're made to do well while sitting still. That's kind of what they're designed for, because that's what most people do with their trailer tires. So, like what we're doing with our Airstream right now, it's set up as an Airbnb, and it won't move for the next year or two. We threw marathons on there, and it's going to be fine. And it's because what they'll do is they'll age out before they wear out. Whereas if you drive a lot, your tires will wear out. You'll get down to no tread, and then you'll have to get new tires. Whereas people that don't full time rarely ever get to that point. The rubber will get brittle before you have to get the treads.
I don't think we got a flat tire on anything.
We didn't get a flat tire either. We just had the one spare on the truck and then the one spare on the Airstream.
That's what we had too, right?
Yeah. And I don't think we ever had to use them. But that is one thing that people do say though, like, carry 2 spare tires.
Right, yeah.
But
I think prevention is the best.
Yeah, right. If you start out with good tires, of course anything can still happen, but
we did change our tire once we got back into Washington. We took off that bottom spare tire off the Airstream, and it was so caked in mud, and we put it on the Airstream, and it was just like...
surprisingly, we got a slow leak on one of our Airstream tires when we got back into the lower 48. Yeah. So we had to swap one of those out. Yeah. But not while we were up there.
Do we carry extra water or just what is in your tank?
We carry extra water.
Yeah, we have 2 7-gallon jugs. The big Reliance 7 gallons that we always have in the back of the truck. And that's in addition to our 40-gallon freshwater tank on the trailer.
And our bladder.
And that's...
You can get water, though, pretty much everywhere in Alaska. So it's not difficult getting water. Yeah. It's just, when you want to go wild camp and boondock, and you don't want to have to go and find water and shuttle it back, then when you have an opportunity to fill up, it's nice to be able to fill up more than what's in your tank.
I should mention that we have, on our freshwater tank, on the Airstreams anyway, there's a petcock that's down below the wheel well.
Yeah.
And when we were driving gravel road, this is the Dempster, which Dan says not to take your Airstream on. This is one of the reasons. So great. Sorry.
Okay. Somebody asked what we lock our hitch with. When we leave the Airstreams.
We have a fairly unique, and I wouldn't say uncommon, because I think it's fairly popular with full timers. We have the Hensley Arrow hitch, which is not, you don't just drop the hitch onto a ball in your truck. So there's a whole like metal stinger that goes in and out. So all we do is we lock that to the Airstream, and then we put our little, the little bar that goes through your truck to lock the hitch. We put that in there, so then people they have to cut that to take it off. So yeah, so we don't use anything special to lock it, but it is locked, and you definitely should lock if you're going to leave your trailer, especially for any extended period of time, and especially when you're boondocking or wild camping where there's potentially nobody around, and if they know you're there, they can come and pick it up. And it's an expensive tube of aluminum.
Yeah,
you guys lock yours?
We sometimes, if we're like really paranoid, we'll run chains through the wheels and padlock the chains.
Yeah.
Done that
not cable.
Times. No.
Chain.
Forget cable.
Yeah.
See, that's an inside joke. You only know if you follow him on Instagram.
Well, we had our bikes. We were actually at his mom's place and parked outside of her house in Sun City, Arizona. It's a retirement community. And we were sleeping, and about 1 a.m., there's a sound, there's a jolting sound, and it turns out some kid has cut through our cable locks and is about to take one of our bikes. Seth yelled at him and he ran away, but cable locks.
Yeah.
Can you yell at my kid?
It looked like it was butter. The way how clean it was.
Yeah,
cut.
yeah. It took no time at all for him to get through that cable lock. So that moral of that story was, don't trust cable locks for expensive stuff like bikes and generators.
Okay. Anything else about Alaska? Let me just say hi to some of these people. Well, Jocelyn wants to know if I plan to make any more cooking videos. There's actually one cooking video, the meal that we made in the Airstream recently. I'm editing that right now. That'll be up. Helmut from your homeland of Germany. How do you finance all the traveling? He watches us from Lagos, Nigeria. He's from Germany.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, cool.
Well, we've got different answers, right? We've got different answers.
Yeah, so I've worked both for myself and for companies in the time that I've been doing this, and it's always been, the grass is always seeming greener on the other side. So when you're freelance, you have a lot of freedom, and you can kind of be off grid for extended periods of time and just do your work offline and come back and work with your clients. But there's that security. You don't have quite the same security that you feel when you have your healthcare and paychecks and all this steady stuff that happens. But likewise, when you're working for somebody, it's very, very stable, very secure. But like what Drea does, Monday through Friday, you have to be online. You have to be connected. So it goes back to that anxiety. Oh yeah. So I am a web developer, so I can pretty much work from anywhere with internet connection. And I more or less do all my communications online too, so I don't often have to make phone calls either. So, it's one of the more common professions for people that travel full time, I think.
I am a director at a PR firm for tech startups. It's based in Austin, but I'm on salary and I work remotely for them 9 to 5.
Yeah, and I'm a photographer, so I'm hustling. I'm always taking photos and finding places to publish the photos, and that's about it. Yeah.
It's a great opportunity for somebody who's specializes in landscape photography to live this lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I think maybe you guys follow.
Yeah.
You want to restart the Instagram one? Okay.
We just got to restart Instagram. Oh.
Yeah, I think that's an hour.
I'm like,
I'll do it. Oh, you can start. Okay.
Give me a chance, Dan.
I will say, it seems to me, but we're not talking from experience, but it seems to me that if you are independently wealthy, that is the best way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you can, depending on where you live, and you know the cost of living in the area that you're from, it can be much cheaper to live on the road. But you know, we're speaking personally from somebody who's lived in Southern California for a long time, which is prohibitively expensive. So when you stop making those house payments or rent payments, and you can take that money and just, you know, have either save it or, you know, have that be eliminated from your expenses, it's way cheaper for us. But if you're from somewhere in the middle of the country where it's really cheap to rent a place, other things are really cheap, you may not save that much. So you know, so that's kind of something you guys will have to figure out.
Everybody's rejoining.
Okay.
That's
You're
good.
still coming back.
Just drop off.
Okay, let's see. I can go back to some of these YouTube chats. Do we have a bathroom in our small trailer? Jocelyn wants to know. We don't have a bathroom, a dedicated bathroom, but we do have a toilet. We've been using, when we switched to the truck camper, we started using a little portable cassette toilet. And it actually works out great in a lot of ways that I think is better than our Airstream dedicated toilet black tank, because we can take that cassette and empty it in any residential or commercial toilet, or like a park or a gas station or wherever it is. So we don't have to rely on like RV infrastructure. So that's what we have in the Casita 2 now, just the cassette toilet. So not a dedicated bathroom. She also asked, she says she plans to retire in the next 5 years and go RVing. And we're giving her great ideas. I just need to convince Yada. Is Yada her husband? Well, you definitely should do it. Once you retire, especially.
I want to share. I didn't want to live in an Airstream. I'd never been in an RV before we went, and Seth got the bug, and he worked on me for about 2 years, but I did agree.
Eventually, she came around, so it might take some time, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So it was you.
He wore me out. He mentioned it like maybe like steadily, like 2 or 3 times a week. If we were in Airstream, we could see this. Hey, look at that Airstream over there. Wouldn't it be fun to do this in an Airstream?
Right.
And I put him on a moratorium. I'm like, you may not talk about Airstreams until I say so. And then he's like, that made me very sad.
Oh.
But then we got one after that.
So, do you regret, or are you glad that he was persistent?
I'm glad he was persistent.
Yeah.
It's really fun. There's so much. We live in such a big country in the U.S. It's huge. It's humongous. Canada is humongous. Alaska is humongous. Mexico is pretty big too. I mean, there's so many places to see. It's amazing.
Well, I think your questions have stopped, so maybe we should stop here.
Okay. Okay. So, do we have anything else that we think is worthwhile? Because I mean, this video will get stored, and I think if there was more information about Alaska that we don't think we've covered, we can try to get to them.
Yes, the mosquitoes are that big and that bad.
Depends on the season though, because our year wasn't very bad.
Oh, we had a bad
We had
year.
a pretty
They
good
also
one.
go like deeper into the wild than we do. You know?
No, but this was like. in
They're
most
bad in
places.
normal places.
Yeah. What else?
Oh, you need to have reflectix cut out for every single window because it does not get dark. Like sometimes the sun will sort of set at 1 a.m. and it's impossible to sleep.
Yeah.
Or having,
Yeah.
why do I have to go to sleep, Mom? It's
Right.
still
If you have
light
kids,
outside.
if you have kids, that's absolutely necessary because they will not go to bed. Alaska. What else? Do you think 4-wheel drive is necessary?
We didn't
people
need
do
it
it without a lot,
Yeah.
but
we didn't really need it, but it's always nice,
a nice to have.
insurance backup. Yeah. It's great for solar being up there when there's so many hours of sunlight.
And it's one of the it's tricky though because you get sunlight a lot, but the sun never goes overhead.
Yeah, it's
So
like
it's
a trickle
always
charge around the clock.
Yeah, so if you have portable panels, that will work really well because you'll be able to move that for like 18 hours a day at the point of the sun. Or if you have panels on your trailer that tilt, that'll help a lot too.
Yeah.
And if you're there late in the season, make sure you get some kind of app to tell you about the northern lights.
Oh,
so you
yeah.
can try to get to a place and check the weather, make sure there's no clouds.
Yeah.
And check the rating on that because that is.
Yeah, what's the
something to
website
see.
that we used?
It talks about like the K index or something. No?
Right.
Do you think a Mercedes van would fare well from Tulsa to Alaska?
Yeah.
A Sprinter van? That's what they mean, right?
No.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Be
Lots of
comfortable.
people do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think there's some really nice benefits even compared to our truck camper to have a van, especially Alaska because like you said, 4-wheel drive is a nice to have, it's not a must have. Yeah. And in a van, you have access to your living space from the driver's seat and the passenger seat. So if you didn't want to have to go outside, maybe if the weather's bad, you can just go, hop in the driver's seat and then drive off, and you don't have to pop up and down like we do. So yeah, I would say, and it's Canada and America. It's first world country, so you're gonna be able to get your vehicle serviced at a real Mercedes dealer and all that good stuff.
Definitely do it.
So for the Aurora, the Northern Lights, what we used is aurora-service.org, and they'll give you a KP index. Every day, they'll give you a KP index. And I want to say, anytime when the KP index was like 4 or higher, there was a really good chance that that we would see Northern Lights. And they have basically within like a window of time when they give you the index, like when it's going to be a 4 or higher. The other thing that really to kind of keep an eye out for is whether or not they're going to be clouds. If you're in the Alaskan interior, more often than not, there are clouds. Mm-hmm. And if you have clouds, you may be, the KP index may be at a 7, but it doesn't do you any good when you
just described our experience.
You had a high KP index?
We never saw the Aurora because clouds rolled in when the KP index was aligning.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So another thing to think about trying to see Northern Lights when you're up there is because it's so light during the summer, you're most likely going to have to wait until the end of summer, if not the start of fall, to have a better chance of seeing them. And the KP index, regardless of how high or low it is, it doesn't care if it's day or night. If you have a high KP index during the day, you're not going to see anything. So all things have to line up. You have to have no clouds, high KP index, and it has to be dark. So, if that's what you want to do, go up there, try. You may stay potentially later in the season than you would have liked, but when you do see them, you'll know that it's all worth it.
One of the things the kids liked when we went to Alaska is to pay attention to the fire weeds, because that will tell you how much of the summer season you have left. They're like, oh no, the fire weeds, the blooms are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And sure enough, when they just completely died, everything turned to fall. It was like all of a sudden yellow.
Yeah.
It was like a week of yellow, and then it got really cold. They were like, we got to get out of here.
Yeah, I think there's another name for fireweeds because I never knew that they called them fireweeds. I don't know what the other name is either, but they're kind of this tall plant that have petals, like purple, red, magenta colored petals that kind of go all the way up, and they start shedding those petals from top down, and that's when when it's halfway down, it's about summer's about halfway done, and then when they completely shed,
Or the other way around.
they disappear from one end to the other. Yeah, seasons.
Moose were scarier than bears. I should have added.
I said that.
Oh, did you say moose? Okay.
Yeah.
Like a mama moose with babies is like the most
That's the
dangerous
most dangerous.
animal.
Yeah.
So do not approach moose, especially a mama.
They'll stomp
And
you.
personally, we didn't see nearly as many bears in Alaska as we did in Canada. So I think mostly it's because Alaska is so big, and the place that you're able to drive to is such a small size in proportion to the rest of it, that the bears, if they don't want to be seen, they don't want to be near people, they don't have to. There's lots of places where they can go where they don't have to be seen. Versus Canada, roads go everywhere in Canada. So when you're driving through Canada, you're going to see bears on the side of the road. I mean,
They're logging their habitat too, so I think it's driving them.
They're driving them out, probably,
roads.
right? Yeah. So we saw so many more bears, mostly black bears, though. I think in Canada, a couple of brown bears, than in Alaska. We did see some grizzlies in Denali, and that was the only place we saw them.
We took the green bus all day tour to Denali.
But we saw a lot of mooses.
What's your solar battery setup?
So we'll go over ours, and you can go over yours. On the Airstream, we have 300 watts, and we just have the standard 2 interstate 75 amp hour Group 24 lead acid batteries. The reason why I never upgraded them is it never seemed cost effective to me. I can get these Costco deep cycle batteries for like $75 a piece, and the way that I use them, I basically cycle them once every day, and they're rated to be about cycled 300 to 400 times. So by the end of the year, they're pretty much toast, and I just take them back. I go to Costco, and they're guaranteed for 18 months. So every time I take them back at the end of the 12-month cycle, I get a third of my money back towards new batteries. So every year it costs me about a little over $100 to get new batteries. And if you were to spend $500-600 on expensive batteries that last 5 years, it doesn't seem to necessarily, make more sense. And I like the feeling of dropping fresh batteries into the battery tray. So now we have a different setup. We still have 500. So we still have 300 watts on the trailer, but one of the 100 watts is a portable panel. So we have 200 in the casita, 100 portable. But now we've added 200. We have 500 total now because we have 200 more on the truck camper.
Do you have to check your water levels and maintain them?
You're supposed to, but when I go through them once a year,
that's enough.
I never get around to it.
Yeah. we have 520 watt solar array, and so I dropped this close to $700 on AGM Lifeline batteries, and I don't regret it because they have been super solid. I dropped them in, and I haven't had to think about them in 4 years. They've just been like bulletproof.
Are you on 6 volts or 12 volts?
They're 6 volts.
6 volts.
So,
so 2 6-volt batteries in series, making one big 12-volt battery.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're sealed. You can have those inside your RV if you'd like. They're not going to off gas with any toxic gases. So again, it's personal preference, but we have the expensive solar batteries, and I've been really happy with them.
I mean, I think it ultimately cost isn't going to be the reason.
Yeah.
I think it's probably going to cost about the same either way.
Yeah.
In your way, you can have something that you don't have to worry about for years down the road. Mm-hmm. In my way, I don't have to spend this high upfront cost.
Right.
And just get new ones on a regular basis.
Right. Yeah.
So you can go either way. One thing that might be interesting to note too is our solar system. We switched from running them in parallel, which means each of our panels they're called 12-volt panels, even though the output on them is 22 volts. You can run them in parallel, meaning they stay 22 volts nominal output the whole time. And then you run it through your charge controller to give it the proper voltage to charge your battery. But I've switched over to running them in serial or in series. So 2 panels are now running series. So now I have a 24 volt system that have a nominal volt of 44 volts. And the reason why I do that is if you use a portable panel and you're going to have like a really long, DC wire connecting your solar panel, your portable panel to your battery, the longer that wire run is, the more voltage drop you're going to have. By running them in series, you can get by with a thinner wire that's longer, so you can kind of be in the shade and put that panel out in the sun and still have enough voltage to charge your battery when it comes 25 to 50 feet away from that panel. So that's something that you want to consider, whether you want to run them in series or parallel. But solar battery discussions can go on all day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Donovan wants to know, do we feel Airstream is a good investment?
I think as far as an investment in the quality of life, yeah. As far as like your monetary investment, no.
Not the new ones, especially.
Right.
The new ones are so expensive now. You would not
buy brand new.
You would not get your money back.
Yeah.
Right.
Look for a good quality used Airstream.
Yeah. And if you have the time and you have the know-how, it would almost be your best bet would almost be to buy a vintage Airstream and redo it yourself. As far as investment goes, that you can actually make money on.
Yeah, we have a friend, meant for adventure. He spent, I don't know, a few thousand on an Airstream, totally renovated it. Now it's worth like 10 times what he spent.
Yeah, I want to say he probably spent more than just a few thousand though. I think all said and done, he's probably close to 20 grand in.
Oh yeah, okay.
But that's still
the initial Airstream.
Right.
That's good.
But 20 grand is still like, what is that? Like a fifth of the cost of a new one.
Yeah, and it's completely tailored to his preferences, and
you know how every system works.
Yeah.
Because,
But you will need a year of your life dedicated to this project.
Yeah.
It's a major time commitment to do that.
Another thing about Airstreams, and this could be true for other RVs, I'm not sure, but it really, really pays to know how to fix them yourself, because Airstream dealerships, they have a reputation for being overpriced and kind of shady.
They're expensive,
shops.
and they're not necessarily better than what you can do yourself.
Yeah, so you want to be a handy person.
especially when you're going to Alaska and there's you're on a road, like our brakes failed.
Yeah, so when we came out of McCarthy, like I was saying earlier, we drove back through that 60-mile pothole. So basically by the time we left, all the what are they called?
Potholes?
No, the line. All the washboards turned to potholes. So it was like, usually you can avoid the potholes by swerving a little bit. This we could not. So by the time we got out there, it had shook so much that one of our brake assemblies on the Airstream shook I think the magnet like shook off. And as it was turning, like it jammed inside one of the hubs, and then like the tire basically was like stuck. So luckily, because it's dirt, like we didn't drag it on asphalt. So we heard it, I felt it, I got out, knowing that I've done my own brakes, I've done my own bearing packing before. I knew that I could just take this tire off, take the brake completely off, put the tire back on, and just kind of limp to where I need to be, and wait for a new brake assembly. But that would have been, I don't know how many thousands of dollars to get somebody to come out here and tow you away, and
we had no reception, so
there
was nobody to call.
We would have to leave the Airstream on the side, go find somebody, and so definitely like know at least the basics, know how to like understand the drivetrain, the thing that will keep you going down the road. Any plans to do Central or South America? Do you guys have aspirations for Central or South America?
At some point, I think that would be fantastic.
Aspirations, yeah, but we haven't made plans to do that.
Yeah.
Not in the Airstream, though.
A different
vehicle.
Right.
Yeah.
We'd do that in like a van or truck camper.
Yeah. We thought last year we would do it, but circumstances were that we couldn't get our truck past Guatemala and be able to come back through Mexico. And I think that's changed since, but
that's kind of our decision.
Yeah.
We were going to go, and then
had we gone to Guatemala, I think we would have gone further. At least to Costa Rica.
We'd have to, because we couldn't come back to Mexico. They
Right.
wouldn't have let us. We'd have to ship it around.
So now, our current goal is not Central or South America anymore in the short term. We're looking more to overseas. Europe is specifically what we're thinking this year. What are you guys' plans this year?
We'll probably be hanging around the West. Yeah. We just love the West. And we are. It's always tempting to go back up to Alaska, so I'm not going to eliminate that option, but yeah.
Possibly downsizing, or at least changing the mode of transportation.
Our Airstream. We've been we're a married couple. We've been sleeping on bunk beds for the past 4 years, and one of the bunk beds is like half a twin.
You gotta look on yourself.
Right, you guys like our Airstream. Like we're not back. So somebody actually asked, will we go back living the Airstream in the near future? The answer is right now is no, because it's not the right setup for us. Like you guys, the layout is everything. And the layout in our Airstream right now just isn't. Our kids are way bigger than the last time we were there, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, probably almost.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter the size of the trailer. It's that setup, the way it's laid out. So important.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we covered pretty good as far as Alaska goes.
Yeah. Do we use CB radios when we're up there? Somebody asked.
No, we didn't use CB radios. We did have like those walkie-talkies.
Yeah, with friends.
Yeah, so not specifically CB radios, if you mean that. Like a real radio guide would be unhappy if I assumed CB radios and walkie-talkies were the same, right? Yeah. So no, not specifically CB, but VHF, UHF, walkie-talkies. Yes, we did.
All right, that covers it.
All right. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining this live stream. It was an experiment at the very least.
Yeah, hopefully.
But it was fun.
It was fun.
We had some good information. If anybody is like on the fence trying to decide yes or no if you should go to Alaska, if you have the opportunity to go, do it. Just life is short. Like if you have the opportunity, go for it. You may not feel like you have everything planned out and in place before you go, but you can figure those things out as part of the adventure. Mm-hmm. So I would say just get some dates on the calendar and commit to it, because it's going to be one of the best things I think that you'll look back on in your lifetime. So, and
for us, it wasn't absolutely necessary to make any reservations, but depending on how you prefer to travel, you may want to commit to some reservations,
right?
And how long you're going to be there. So, but I don't think it's necessary. You will find places. They may not be the best places for you to be, but let's say if you want to camp in Denali, you'll probably want to make reservations there. But if you want to just go down to the Kenai Peninsula, there's lots of state recreation areas and boondocking places.
Yeah.
And down in Seward, half the town is basically an RV park.
Yeah.
So
it's really easy to wing it. Yeah. Just go.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to follow Seth on his. I'll put a link down there in the YouTube channel. If you're not following us, come on, what are you doing? All right, guys. I'll see you later.
Bye, guys.